Dirty South Security Podcast, coming to you straight from the ATL, here with my sidekick Kofi.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
Doing all right, man. How about you?
Good to see you out in the ATL. We're out and about. We're gonna hit it hard today on AppSec, so get ready for some hard-hitting questions. You ready to dive in?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, sounds good. So, really quick, first topic, AppSec, application security. A lot has happened over the past 10, 15, 20 years, really, in application security. Many will contend that AppSec is dead. Thoughts on that?
No, sir.
Tell me more. We're going to disagree on this one.
No, I mean, I don't think it's dead.
Well, first off, how do you define AppSec?
That is the definition of it. I think it depends on whoever is defining it. There are several ways that we define these things. So, application security, in my sense, is how we implement security within application development from the get-go, from requirement all the way through to production, and then even after. It's just a cycle, continuous, improvement of the application, security posture.
All right, now theory into practice, I'm going to contend that doesn't happen. So
now that's a different question from whether it's dead or it's not happening.
Okay.
I mean, you could have something being dead. That is like dead, flat, gone.
Right.
Something could be also on their last limb and they're still surviving. And that means they have some things going on, not 100%, but things are not going the way they're supposed to be.
So you're saying that AppSec is close to death?
It's halfway.
Okay.
I mean, it has its own issues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's completely dead, but I don't think things are happening the way they're supposed to, as you're saying. In theory, yes, but in practice, we have some challenges. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, my definition of AppSec is, application security, the intent or the theoretical, design behind it. It was to ensure that software was going to be resilient, secure, and in practical terms, in terms of operations, in terms of enterprise security, a lot of AppSec efforts included dynamic application security testing, DAST, software application security testing, SAST, or code reviews. Now it encompasses also software composition analysis, manual pen testing, right? You have infrastructure pen testing in the cloud, you have network pen testing, and so that's a lot of the AppSec related efforts was in, I'm going to do something and I'm going to find what's wrong with the software, whether at the code level or dynamically within the environment. And for me, I contend AppSec is dead. And the reason that it's dead is because what comes out of that process is a lot of information that is not actionable by a lot of enterprises. They're losing the battle of remediation. They're losing the battle of contextualization. They're losing the battle of prioritization. And for those reasons, I think that it's time to put a time and place and time of death, on John Jane Doe AppSec.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it needs to. I mean, if you look at the history of cybersecurity in general, each time we think something is dead, it just comes back in a different form.
Okay.
So things don't really die in cybersecurity. I mean, look at authentication-based attacks. Just when we thought brute force attack is dead, the bad guys came back with password spray attack. The other way around it. They are also authentication-based attacks, just rebranded in a different way. So I don't think AppSec will be dead or will die. I think over time things will just evolve and then make it better, and we'll just come back with different names. Sure, I mean, we started off with what? AV, antivirus software. Now we have what? EDR solutions. And I think there's some names actually popping up with different ways of detecting, attacks on endpoint devices. They are all still addressing the same issues, endpoint attacks, from AV to EDR and some other names. So I think, AppSec has its challenges, and even though we may have other things coming through, which we'll be discussing, I think one way or the other, they have some small remnant or some parts of AppSec built into them.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you on the subject of that there is a lot of marketing that gets in the way.
Yeah.
Right? And so in the AppSec realm, I do believe that over time in cybersecurity, which before we used to call it InfoSec, remember that?
There you go. See?
So there's a lot of things that are rebranded. So I'll concede to that for sure. I mean, and rebranding and marketing, thanks to a lot of different places like Gartner or Forrester, we're having to get reacclimated to basically a different skin of something. But I still contend that AppSec is dead in terms of a process. And my contention of what is dead is that the processes that are traditional of AppSec efforts, some of which I already mentioned, are dead because they're ineffective. They're ineffective for the following reasons. They're done in isolation.
Yeah, I agree.
So oftentimes there's individuals that are running these sort of tools, dynamic analysis, security testing, manual pen testing, and there's no workflow that basically ensues. And so you have this island type syndrome where the process is done and it doesn't really materialize into a level of software resiliency that is really intended. So that's one of the reasons that I think it's dead. Number two, I think that remediation queues, oftentimes, if you're a product manager, this is what's happening today, ladies and gentlemen. I go to you and I say, here is your Qualys report. Here is your Lacework CSPM scan.
Yeah.
Here is your checkmarks code reviews report.
Yeah.
Here is your HP FOD dynamic scan or Veracode.
Yeah, Black Duck, whatever, all those. Yeah.
As a product manager, where do you start?
That is a problem. That is a challenge.
Right.
Let's get this right. Let's get it straight. I'm not saying that what you're saying, all of them are wrong. In fact, I'm actually agreement with some of the things that you're saying.
Okay.
Can some of them be addressed? If something can be addressed, you don't just give up on it easily.
I agree.
First of all, you said things are in isolation. I 100% agree with you. In fact, I'm dealing with an environment or with an organization where pen test is done by pen testers, manual pen testing. And then we have the SAS and DAS that do their own rounds of scans and stuff like that.
Right.
Now, the pen testers have their findings. The SAS and DAS or the AppSec guys have their findings. And then you ask yourself, how do we even collaborate? Because there are some places where even the SAS and DAS, they have some vulnerabilities which were discovered by the pen testing team, the manual.
Right.
But because there's this sort of separation between these two teams, that is what the problem is. As you were saying about, things are much more in isolation than working in collaboration. The question is, can that be resolved?
Well, I'll throw it back to you. I contend that there's been plenty of time in the realm of AppSec that, provided an opportunity for resolving this, and it hasn't been resolved. So, I think there needs to be something different. And, in the advent of AI and the advent of ongoing automation desires by big enterprises, I think that there's an opportunity for a lot of this, type of work to be orchestrated and also to be instrumented, differently. Security island syndrome, I think, is a major problem in AppSec. The remediation queues, the example I gave with the product owner getting all these types of deliverables, there's no cohesiveness to AppSec. And for those reasons, I think that AppSec, at the very least is in intensive care. They're in Grady Hospital right now in ATL.
I think to some extent, yes, you're right about that. Now, again, I'm viewing this from a standpoint of, can we do something about these things that you're bringing up? Remediation process. Let's be fair enough. I think you haven't even thrown in the engineers who are going to fix a problem themselves. Do we have enough resources? Because coming from corporate, standpoint, from my standpoint, what I have seen is one of our biggest challenges when it comes to remediation is resources. Resource constraint. That has been one of the biggest challenges. So we can't just blame AppSec being dead necessarily without even looking at what are we doing as an organization when it comes to resource.
Valid point.
Yes. All right.
Yep.
So talking about this, if you have and I've dealt with leadership that would have, you haven't even mentioned much. Scan will come out and they have about 1,000 vulnerabilities.
Right.
I mean, think about that, right? And
At
then
least.
yes, that's it. Yeah, exactly, right. So how do you prioritize these things?
Right.
How do you automate these things? Who are the resources to man all these things? So I think the problem is, let's look at how do we solve these issues, or what is even causing these issues. And vuln assessment, vuln management and addressing vulnerabilities, I think comes down to one, process, lack of process in place, and then two, lack of resources. I think that's one of my,
Yeah, but I don't think the resources issues, and we're going to get into, what are the top 5 things that we think that could revive, whether it be AppSec or any other, descriptor of AppSec, towards the end of this particular podcast episode. But I think overall, resource depletion hasn't been there in this downtime economy, will not be there with a greater, falling in love with AI and automation. There's going to be more of that focus. So that's my contention. I'm going to say that AppSec is, I'll retreat from saying that it's dead. I think it's in life support.
Finally, guys, we've now got one on our side.
I'm open to the fact that we could be at its wake next week. We could be the open casket wake. But let's go into some of the market. And this is not necessarily us particularly saying this, but the market. And oftentimes the market is influenced by, what major marketing companies and players are talking about. There is this aspect of application security posture management, ASPM, which is dubbed, it's heralded as the next AppSec. And so AppSec, if you Google, please, right now, you're watching this episode right now, please Google what is ASPM, and then you can add cybersecurity if you want. And you'll see that some of the more prevalent definitions, actually, thanks to the SEO optimization from Gartner, is going to be a definition that encompasses, a greater understanding of application risk. Okay. And if we look at like some of the predecessing efforts of AppSec, you have SAS, DAS, all that stuff. You had, again, very isolated silos of code risk, implementation risk of the application risk, stuff like that. But right now, there's this application security posture management, ASPM. They want to be able to say, what is the holistic application risk that we have? And so that's here today. That's being heralded. My point on this is that I think that risk-centric threat models are actually the ASPM that wasn't marketed sexually, very, very attractively by Gartner. Because with a risk-centric approach, you're thinking about, what am I building? What do I care about? What is the mission of this application? How does it come together? And then you add on all the nefarious things like threat correlation. Yeah. What are the types of threats that are happening against this type of product, et cetera, and things like attack viability and things like that. So my contention on this on ASPM, I do think that ASPM, from a business, marketing, and professional, like where we are in cybersecurity, I think it is the new AppSec.
Okay.
I think there is a market demand for something greater than these, isolated swim lanes of application security that are taking place right now. And I think ASPM offers, at least, face of value, this sort of like veneer of a cohesive application security posture of what's wrong with my product. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and you saw me here, and you've been talking about AI. So I figured, you know what? Why don't you consult AI and then give us a brief description of what application security posture management is, just in case for those who may not have time to Google out. Do you mind if I read this out?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So it says it is a framework or approach designed to help organizations continuously monitor, and I'm trying to emphasize on the things that you have said already.
Yes.
And how they actually do apply in this definition, right? So continuous monitoring. So like, having a process in place as part of this, application application security assessment, right? So assess and manage the security posture of their applications. All right. So the focus is basically, key points, monitoring. So continuously having that monitoring capability within the application. How are we doing this? Do we have any vulnerabilities? How do we automate this whole process, right? So that is one key aspect of this ASPM, right? And the second one is risk prioritization. Being able to, if I want 1,000 vulnerabilities, how do I prioritize and then address the ones which need to be fixed, immediately, right, on time? And then what else? Automation, remediation.
Right.
Because now we're talking about what? Resource constraints, right? Well, if you have only 2 or 3 people to man like about 5,000 vulnerabilities, what stops us from automating this process and make their jobs a lot easier, right?
Right.
So that also builds into the ASPM as part of the key factors, on it. And then the final, which addresses your your first point about AppSec being that, is collaboration. All right. So according to our AI definition, or giving us key points, and thank you AI for that. So ASPM, one of the main points is to help in collaboration when it comes to teams and addressing application problems.
I mean, yeah, okay, so that is the marketed definition. Now let's talk reality check. As I go through some of this right here, there's a lot of things, like, for example, when I hear like continuous testing, that doesn't make any intellectual sense as a practitioner in this space for 27 years, because you find something that's wrong in 1 hour, okay? You go back the next hour, do you expect remediation to have happened, on what you found? No. And the only reason for a continuous level of testing would be is if your build process or your commit process is basically at a certain cadence where every time you're making a code commit, you're finding new things, but that's not, so that word continuous is, in my opinion, a misnomer. It's a marketing term. So right there, I overall, listen, ASPM, I'm not really exactly a big fan of the term. I'm not a big trusting fan of any type of marketing, in cybersecurity, which there's a ton of snake oil. Cue up the snake avatar across this image here, please, Tim. But it's needed because there's so much snake oil in this industry. However, we do need something different that does espouse a lot of the things in ASPM, such as greater context, improve automation, workflows. I find something, what do I do with it, right? I need to contextualize it, move it into the people that are going to be able to validate it. I also need prioritization. Okay, so this is where I think risk-centric threat modeling, and I keep saying that a lot. So the framework, PASTA, you guys know me, Tony UV, I'm going to definitely talk about PASTA. PASTA is really the process for attack simulation and threat analysis, where it's the only risk-centric threat modeling methodology. And so what we want to be able to do is to be able to prove that some of the things that you find in terms of your SaaS, your DAS, your SCA, your attack surface, your cloud-related insecurities are going to be of importance to your application, right? If you're a product manager, let's say that you're developing an e-commerce site, and you're selling, a new type of hatware, okay? You have information, customer information. Obviously, information disclosure for any e-commerce site is a major no-no. So you got to put that in your threat assertion and your threat model. Now, let's say you have 5,000 vulnerabilities along the network, permission, IAM, flavors, and across the board. You want to be able to prioritize things that are happening in your industry, e-commerce, retailer, as well as things that are related to use cases that affect your business, right? In this case, protecting personal information. So from my experience, when you basically approach using a threat model-based approach, right, which a lot of the ASPM marketed solutions out there are not mentioning threat modeling, don't know why. But I think my contention is that threat modeling provides already that lens or that framework, if you will, to package a lot of the things that were previously isolated by our since late friend AppSec that's passed away at Grady Hospital.
All right. So threat modeling has actually been what I thought was going to be the next if AppSec passed away, as opposed to ASPM. And as you said, some of these things are marketing stunts, right? As much as sometimes they have a good purpose, sometimes too they make a point.
Right.
If you were to ask me about a really good continuous application security posture, whatever it is, I would say it would be very difficult.
Yeah, agreed.
Because if we are actually making a mistake right now by even just talking about application. What about the infrastructure that supports it?
Right.
All right, there has to be something comprehensive. And that is always going to be very challenging, because I'm coming from corporate. And I have to deal with so many people from different stakeholders when it comes to just one application.
Right.
You have the cloud guys who need to deploy an environment for assessing the application, and the infrastructure that it depends on has its own different beast.
Yep.
Okay, and then you have those who actually deploy on, say, let's say on-prem for customers. That has its own different beast of managing application deployment.
Right.
And then we have those who are just SaaS. So you have all these different kinds of deployment for application, and you're trying to build security into this whole process when you have different kind of stack in here. So my challenge is actually seeing ASPM being the true
glue
savior for this mess.
Yeah.
In fact, I would even root for threat modeling than ASPM, because I think threat modeling gives you the room to go end to end or just tackle all the stack in the whole process than just ASPM or something which is very specific just to application and not considering the other stack, the other part of the ecosystem.
I wrote a blog post not too long ago. I'm going to ask the QR code to pop up so that you can basically take a look at it. It shows it's a metaphorical camel that has all these different security activities that happen. DAS, SAS, manual pen testing, vuln scanning, CSPM, all that stuff, CNAP, and then there's this person that's putting this last straw on the camel's back, and the camel is like about to break, right?
Yeah.
And that straw is called threat modeling.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way that you use threat modeling to encompass and bundle a lot of those activities that are on the camel's back. But to take threat modeling as a net new initiative, disparate of these other things that traditionally you've done in AppSec, I think is a huge adoption and implementation mistake in threat modeling. At the end of the day, I think that some level of application security posture management and its literal, I guess, representation of the English language should happen. I think that there does need to be something that helps to improve contextualization, risk prioritization, and things like that. But I don't think that the way that the market is doing it today is the way, because it doesn't address the corporate thing that you brought up, which is you have so many stakeholders.
Yeah.
And a product of ASPM is not going to be that glue, right?
Yeah.
Because if you and I are having to get used to new terms like CNAP and ASPM and ADR, how much more is someone going to be on the other side, right? So, we're going to be trying to speak a new language of Esperanto, and they're going to be like, I don't care for Esperanto.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, where we have some realistic challenges with getting ASPM to not just be another soon-to-be death victim in the AppSec realm.
Well, time will tell.
Time will tell.
All right.
Time will tell. Let's end with this. Top 5 recommendations for application security programs. If you basically were given, and let's just go ahead and not assume budget, but if you want to talk about monetary investments and stuff like that as part of your top 5 for AppSec or, ASPM or whatever, what would be your top 5 recommendations? Process, tooling, training. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I think
that you would
said,
have.
you've said most of them already. I would say process first, because the process will define what resources and the direction we go in application security. So I'll say having the right process in place will be my go-to. The second one will be, honestly, the resource, addressing resource constraint.
Okay.
Because that is dear to me, and I've seen a lot of people getting burned.
In-house, out-house, both? Hybrid?
I'll say both.
Okay.
Hybrid is good. Not all institutions can afford to have their own in-house resources, and that is where sometimes you may want to have augmented, staff. I believe you guys do offer one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I have seen people doing a great job by outsourcing to third parties, coming to help out if you can have the internal resources for it. So that is one. The second and the third is automation, as we talked about. Automation. I know people think that some people think AI is going to, coming to take our job. I think, people who lose their job are those who don't know how to use AI. So we need to learn how to automate most of these things if we have to.
Give me an example there. Because I mean that's the high level. But where are some specific opportunities in AppSec for AI adoption, use, and implementation?
I'll say I'm not an expert in AI, but continuous monitoring and detection could be, how we can, AI can help with finding and then addressing issues as and when they're coming through.
Okay.
So again, I don't want to sound like I know a lot about AI, but I think that is something where that we can, help out with when it comes to application security.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was there another one in there, or was that basically the key ones?
I would say those are the key ones. I mean, there will be a lot, but that will be the key ones. You may have extra to add in here.
Yeah, I think so just to kind of cover them again, so you, in no particular, you said resources, you said adoption of automation, and with that you said the AI process, definitely. The only thing I would add on there, and some of the things I think you would have it to be implied, but I think that using threat modeling as a framework to be able to enshroud or create a blueprint for a lot of the tests on the offensive side, on the architectural side, on the, so as an example, a risk-centric approach will take maybe, again, going back to e-commerce, what are the threats that are happening over the past 6-12 months, right, in e-commerce? There's different adversarial groups that have different types of objectives. Some of them are target-based, some of them are industry-based, some of them are use case-based. To be able to take that information, put it into a threat model, then that threat model then provides a blueprint for what you want to test. Now, you could even automate some of those tests, right? If you want to test, a type of reflective or persistent SQL inject cross-site scripting, or you want to test some level of data exfiltration attacks, related to like SQL injection. Then those are things that are going to be attack patterns that are more matching the threat objectives of some of the threats that you're, operationalizing from your threat intel group. But going back to the AI, just to add on some things there, I think that you can take AI to be able to take a look at a lot of taxonomies that are out there in the AppSec space. So you have like taxonomies from MITRE, CAPEC, CWE, CVE, Defend. You have the new one for software composition called Oscar. The AI models can kind of build those relationships for you.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opportunity where you can basically identify what is the relationship. If you have one particular vulnerability, how does it cross-relate to different types of attack patterns, CAPEC, or post-exploitation patterns in attack framework and things like that.
Exactly.
But closing thoughts.
I think that is all that I have from my side. Definitely something that I think is going to hang around. The discussion is going to keep going on a bit until we know the full scale of its potence. If ASPM is going to be the next thing to help, or it's going to flop like Blu-ray.
Kofi, do you think how bad do you think we're losing the software security battle?
I don't think it's as bad as you think, though.
Okay.
It's just new generational things. We keep evolving. Cybersecurity has always withstand any new trend. I mean, we evolve, and then we find ways to fix it. New problems come up, we go back, we fix it, and that's how it is. Otherwise, man, our job would be very, very boring, though. Honestly, would you want to be like just be chilling all day, not having to deal with?
That's true. If there wasn't fires, we wouldn't have a job.
Exactly. So I don't think
from a job security sense, I agree with you.
I don't think it's going. I don't think.
Do you think we're winning?
I don't think we're winning, but let's be honest, Tony. When was the last time that any major cyber breach was linked to? I think I'm going to regret this question. But I'm in the middle already, so I may have to ask.
I'm salivating already.
I'm already in the middle, so let me just let it out. So I'm just saying that when was the last time that we read any major breach that was specifically like, let's say, this was caused by like an application-based vulnerability, like SQL injection led to this bigger breach?
Well, there's so many that
but I'm talking about major.
Major.
I'm talking about a scale of like Columbia Pipeline kind of like or SolarWinds kind of attack, like or Sony kind of attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's an unfair question for someone that's close to 50, but because I don't have them memorialized in my brain, but I definitely feel that there is a lot more that if you look at some of the reports, application security attacks are the third most prevalent attack vector behind phishing and privilege escalation or credentials based attacks. So, but going back to winning or losing, I think that I'm more of a realist or maybe even a pessimist borderline, because I think that there's a lot of poor application security hygiene in corporate entities, and it's not even about resources. I think it comes down to execution. I think there's a lot of smoking mirrors that are done in terms of buying what I call Noah's Ark security, 2 of every type of security product that's out there, and then creating these dashboards and having these sort of like veneer metrics, but it doesn't really do anything. And we've seen a lot of, remember the Target breach? I kind of dubbed them as having 2 of everything. And it comes down to execution. I think that in today's age where companies are more financially strapped, innovation and more orchestration of AppSec efforts is going to be a non-negotiable, because cybersecurity is so expensive.
Yeah.
The people are expensive, the tools are expensive, the time, cyber liability insurance is expensive. Something's got to give.
Yeah. I think this discussion will be ongoing for very, very long time. And going back to my point about things evolve in cybersecurity, think about it. Applications 20 years ago, were they as complex as they are right now?
No.
We keep piling on different languages, different libraries, different frameworks, and all of these are coming in with their own problems.
Well, by complex, monolithic applications, I think, were, more straightforward, and they had a lot more legacy and tenure. And there's also, you had different development life cycles, like more of a waterfall. So I think that they were more manageable. Now there's so much dynamicness in how we build packaged software, and there's tech refreshes happening all the time.
That is what I'm saying.
And so in that sense, I agree if that's complex.
So So the more complex things are getting, you can't have your cake and eat it at the same time, man. Your things getting complex, you are going to have a lot of things coming in that are not welcome.
Well, this was a good episode. My final thoughts, and I'll leave it to you to close us out, Kofi, is going to be, for those out there, look into threat modeling. Look into a risk-centric approach that has 7 steps to prove that you have security issues. Incorporate the vulnerabilities, the attack patterns, the threat information, the attack surface, and the business objectives that matter to your software product. Learn how to crawl, walk, run with that PASTA methodology process. Check out and just Google PASTA methodology, and then you can download the ebook that's out there on Versprite.com. That's my parting thoughts on some takeaways there. Kofi, closes out.
Yeah, mine is there is no jack of all trade in this industry. We are here to share our opinions and our ideas. You out there may even have better than us. So what do you think? Just drop in your suggestions.
Absolutely.
What do you think, your feedback about whether application security or AppSec is dead, dying, on a final limb, whatever that.
Or rising like the phoenix.
Yeah, or ASPM is the next. ASPM is the next rising star who is going to save us all from all of our application infested problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of the Dirty South ATL Cybersecurity Podcast, we're one and done on this one. Catch you on the next one.
Yes, sir. All right.
Good seeing you.
All righty.